Right now, you can book a flight with a few taps. You can drive across a country in a day. Maybe you're even watching this video while riding a bus or waiting for a train. Traveling feels like such a modern thing that it's easy to forget one incredible fact. You've actually inherited the urge to travel from ancestors who lived hundreds of thousands of years ago. It's older than cities, older than farming, older than writing, even older than our own species in some ways. The real question is, when did humans actually start traveling? Who took that first journey into the unknown? And why would anyone leave a place they already knew? The answer begins much earlier than you might expect. Long before airports, long before roads, before maps, compasses, or even spoken language as we know it. It begins with creatures that weren't quite human yet. Around 2 million years ago, Eastern Africa looked very different. Forests were shrinking, grasslands were spreading, and the climate kept changing. Food wasn't always in the same place. Water disappeared during dry seasons. Survival meant adapting, and sometimes it meant moving. One of our earliest human relatives, Homo erectus, wasn't built to stay in one place forever. They had longer legs than earlier hominins. Their bodies were better at walking long distances. They used less energy with every step than their ancestors. That sounds like a small upgrade. It changed history. Instead of living their entire lives within a tiny area, groups could slowly follow animals, search for fresh plants, and escape places that no longer supported life. Not because they were explorers, because they had to survive. Here's the fascinating part. Archaeologists have discovered Homo erectus fossils far beyond Africa. Sites in places like Dmanisi in modern-day Georgia contain fossils dating back about 1.8 million years. Think about that. Some of our ancient relatives had already crossed into Eurasia nearly 2 million years ago. Without roads, without wheels, without written directions. Imagine standing at the edge of land you've never seen before. Every hill could hide danger. Every river might be impossible to cross. There are no signs saying, "Good news, food is this way." You simply keep walking, day after day, generation after generation. That's because these journeys weren't vacations. They unfolded over centuries. A family moved a little farther than the last one. Their children grew up there, then wandered even farther. Over thousands of years, those tiny steps became one of the greatest migrations in Earth's history. Here's something most people never realize. The travelers themselves probably had no idea they were changing the world. They weren't trying to discover continents. They weren't chasing adventure. They were following food, avoiding drought, escaping predators, and giving their children a better chance to survive. That's it. Yet those ordinary decisions slowly carried humans across mountains, deserts, and entirely new ecosystems. Researchers studying ancient stone tools have found remarkably similar tool traditions appearing across vast regions, suggesting these populations didn't just wander randomly. They adapted as they moved, learning from unfamiliar landscapes and passing that knowledge to the next generation. Travel wasn't a hobby, it became a survival strategy. But here's the mystery. If Homo erectus managed to leave Africa nearly 1.8 million years ago, why didn't they spread everywhere immediately? Why did it take our own species, Homo sapiens, so much longer to reach every corner of the planet? The answer lies in a journey so extraordinary that it would eventually connect every continent and transform a small group of African humans into a global species. That's where the story takes an even bigger turn. For hundreds of thousands of years, different human species lived across Africa and parts of Eurasia. Some thrived for a while, others disappeared. The world wasn't home to just one kind of human. Then, around 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens appeared in Africa. At first, they weren't world travelers. They were just another human species trying to survive. But something slowly changed. Around 70,000 to 60,000 years ago, small groups of Homo sapiens began leaving Africa in waves. Scientists still debate the exact routes, but genetic evidence and archaeological discoveries point to populations moving through the Middle East before spreading farther into Asia, Europe, and eventually beyond. And here's the surprising part. It probably didn't feel like one giant migration. No one packed a bag and announced, "We're leaving Africa forever." Instead, each generation moved a little farther than the last. A few kilometers here, a new valley there, a better river over the next hill. Tiny decisions, massive consequences. Think about that. A child born near today's Red Sea might grow up hunting farther north than their parents ever did. Their children would do the same. Thousands of years later, their descendants were living in places their ancestors could never have imagined. That's how continents were crossed, one generation at a time. But here's the problem. The world outside Africa wasn't exactly welcoming. Much of the planet was locked in the Ice Age. Enormous glaciers covered huge parts of Europe and North America. Winters were brutal. Food changed with the seasons. Massive animals like woolly mammoths, giant bison, and woolly rhinoceroses roamed the landscape. Humans had to adapt. Fast. They learned to sew animal hides into warmer clothing using bone needles. They built stronger shelters. They mastered fire. They crafted better stone tools and wooden spears. Travel wasn't just about walking anymore, it was about preparation. Here's what makes this so important. Every new environment forced humans to become more creative. Cross a desert? Find new ways to carry water. Enter a freezing valley? Invent warmer clothing? Reach a coastline? Learn to gather shellfish and fish? Every journey became a classroom. Every obstacle became an invention. That's one reason humans became so remarkably adaptable. Then came one of the greatest surprises in human history. Around 65,000 years ago, humans reached Australia. There's just one problem. Australia has always been separated from mainland Asia by stretches of open water, which means they couldn't simply walk there. Somehow, these early humans built simple watercraft or rafts, strong enough to carry people across the sea. Imagine the courage that required. You can't even see the destination from some of those crossings. You're floating into the unknown with no compass, no map, and no guarantee that land is waiting on the other side. I'd definitely be asking, are we absolutely sure this is the right direction? But they went anyway, and they made it. That single achievement completely changes how we think about ancient people. They weren't just survivors, they were planners, problem solvers, risk takers. And the journey wasn't over. Around 45,000 years ago, Homo sapiens spread across much of Europe, where they encountered another human species, the Neanderthals. For thousands of years, the two groups shared parts of the same world. They even interbred, which is why many people today still carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. Think about that. Your family tree may include relatives from a completely different human species. Meanwhile, humans continued pushing into colder regions, higher mountains, and harsher climates. Each new landscape demanded new ideas. Each successful journey proved something remarkable. Humans weren't limited by where they were born. They could learn, adapt, and keep moving. That ability would soon lead to the greatest journey our species has ever made, one that would carry humans into a completely new continent and eventually to nearly every corner of Earth. Eventually, there was only one place left that humans hadn't reached: the Americas. During the last ice age, sea levels dropped dramatically because so much water was locked inside massive glaciers. That exposed a huge stretch of land connecting Siberia and Alaska, known today as Beringia. For thousands of years, it wasn't just a bridge. It was home. Groups of people hunted, gathered, raised families, and slowly explored this new landscape. Then, as glaciers shifted and new routes opened, some of those groups continued south into North America. From there, the journey never really stopped. Over thousands of years, humans spread across forests, deserts, mountains, and eventually all the way to the southern tip of South America. Think about the scale of that. Starting with small groups in Africa, humans eventually occupied every habitable continent on Earth. No engines, no GPS. Just curiosity, cooperation, and an incredible ability to adapt. But here's what makes this even bigger than a story about walking. As people traveled, ideas traveled too. A sharper stone tool, a better hunting strategy, a new way to make clothing. Knowledge became something that could move from one group to another, changing lives far beyond the place where it was first discovered. Then, around 12,000 years ago, another revolution began: agriculture. People started farming crops and raising animals. Villages grew into towns. Towns became cities. At first, you might think that meant humans stopped traveling, but the opposite happened. Now they had something worth carrying: grain, salt, pottery, metal, stories. Trade routes slowly stretched across continents, linking people who would never meet face to face. Long before the Silk Road reached its height, communities were already exchanging goods over astonishing distances. Travel had evolved again. It wasn't only about survival anymore, it was about opportunity. Boats became larger, navigation improved. Coastal journeys turned into ocean voyages. Thousands of years later, sailors crossed vast seas, merchants connected civilizations, and explorers mapped places that had existed all along but were new to them. Every generation pushed a little farther. The same pattern that began nearly 2 million years earlier never disappeared. It simply changed form. Here's the full picture. First, changing climates forced our ancient relatives to keep moving. Then, Homo erectus became the first human species known to leave Africa. Hundreds of thousands of years later, Homo sapiens expanded across the globe, adapting to deserts, forests, frozen tundra, and tropical islands. They crossed seas to reach Australia. They met, and interbred with, other human species in Eurasia. They crossed Beringia into the Americas. Then they built farms, cities, trade networks, ships, and eventually airplanes that could circle the planet in hours, all from one simple habit: taking the next step. So the next time you check flight prices, board a train, take a road trip, or even walk to a nearby store, remember this: you're doing something your ancestors have been doing for hundreds of thousands and arguably millions of years. The technology is new. The instinct isn't. Deep inside your brain is the same curiosity that encouraged countless generations to look beyond the next hill and wonder what was waiting on the other side. That curiosity built civilizations. It connected continents. It shaped every culture alive today. In many ways, the history of travel is the history of humanity itself, because being human has never meant standing still. It's meant wondering what's over there, and then finding out. If you enjoy exploring the incredible stories hidden inside everyday human behavior, there are plenty more waiting to be uncovered. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.